yeah.
Okay, that's good, Megan.
I did that one day at the house. I mean, I won't go along with the paper.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hey, Rick.
Good afternoon, Rick.
Hey, Rick.
Afternoon.
It's 5:30. I was hereby given the city council of the city of Alpine, Texas will hold a regular meeting at 5:30 PM on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020 at the Big Ben Telephone Conference Room at 808 North Fifth Street and via Zoom conference in the city of Alpine, Texas. The purpose of considering the attached agenda. Meeting login details may be found at www.cityofalpine.com. This notice is posted pursuant to the Texas Open Meeting Act, section 5501.043, Texas Government Code. Members of the audience will be provided an opportunity to address the council on any agenda item after determination of a quorum and proof of notice of the meeting. Zoom meeting comments and question rules and procedures are listed on the city website. Remarks will be limited to a total of 3 minutes per person. Please email your name to Gio Calderon at g.calderon@cialpine.tx.us. If you have a petition or other information pertaining to your subject, please email it to the city secretary beforehand.
Somebody might have a shot, driving.
All names wanting to make public comments for the meeting will be queued upon and given to the mayor at the section of the meeting. The mayor will call on those individuals one at a time, and a meeting moderator will take you off mute to make their comments. This will function the same as our existing sign sheet at city council chambers. Please note, you must include your full name first and last, along with the ward you reside in or have business interest in. If you do not live or own property in the city, please state that in your email. State law generally prohibits council from discussing or taking any action on any issue not included on the agenda. But if appropriate, the council may schedule the topic for future discussion or refer the matter to staff. No personal attacks on council members or city staff will be allowed. The mayor and or city council members may call a point to order to stop the personal attacks. If an individual continues to personally attack an elected official or staff member in a meeting, they may be barred. Call this meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag of the United States of America,
America.
and to the republic for which it stands,
One nation,
under God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Texas flag back there if you want to do it.
I Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, indivisible.
Okay, Secretary, do we have a quorum?
Mayor, yes, we do have a quorum. We have all 5 council members and yourself in attendance this evening.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to public comments. Limit to 3 minutes per person. Do we have anybody on queue?
Yes, sir. We do have Mr. Cobos is here this evening.
Okay, Mr. Coles.
Good evening, Council and Mayor, City of Alpine, Oscar Cobos, Ward 5. Let me ask you a quick question. Will I be able to touch both times for item, different items?
What's that?
On items, let's say 2 items, I can touch on those and touch again if the item.
Yeah, it's 30 minutes.
Thank you.
You can, keep it within 3 minutes.
Thank you. Yes, first of all, I just wanted to touch on item number 1, which is in reference to the enterprise zone that you'll have discussed with the Big Bend Regional Medical Center last time and on discussion today again. Just a quick note on that, won't keep you long, is that we all know that the hospital had filed for bankruptcy not too long ago. And I don't remember if it was 11 or 13 or what it was. If I do take this into consideration, also an experience that we had maybe first of the year, not too long ago, at the hospital, just to share this, to know, the city should know, one of the vehicles that we were driving in was wrecked into. I visited with Mr. Flores, and he said, well, there's nothing we can do. The PD could not get any camera footage because the cameras didn't even work. I visited with the CEO, and he said, no. I told him it's a liability issue for Stephanie bodies. Everything's liability. Just so really consider reaching out to them. I wouldn't at all. With this enterprise zone, if they can't even fix their cameras, they're not even focusing on everything else. This is no time to reach out with sales tax or tax breaks and let Tennessee take care of that. And the other item that I wanted to touch on, right, number 10, I wanted to emphasize that back in 1990, February 1990, I was, this is in reference to your city attorney. Back in 1990, I was with, at City Hall in reference to the chief of police that the city of Alpine, he had entered his resignation, which would be Ruben Melgoza. And I was there at that particular meeting, the old building by the jail, and I emphasized the need of breakdown of communication that was going on, that for the city to accept his resignation because they were, thinking about it, twiddling their thumbs about it. And I was actually the only individual that stood up there to say, it's time to accept his resignation. But to make a long story short, now going back to the issue of your city attorney here today, we're at a time that's very critical. And anything is, a lot of things can be a liability issue. I'm gonna go back and emphasize further at my next time around, but I wanted to emphasize with the city that the experiences that many are having, many departments, the city of Alpine, I know and I realize have not been good. And I just want you to know that that's why I'm here tonight, that these issues, it seems like they're going in a trajectory, they're not good. There's a breakdown of communication. And I've got several talking points, but I could always just leave them for the other time. But I will emphasize later on the issue of your city attorney. I'm a firm believer that it is time for a change. In reference to what I looked at, studied, experiences and everything. That's why I'm here tonight to emphasize for the city of Alpine and for all departments their respect and accountability. And I'll be sharing that in further time of the meeting.
Okay,
Thank you.
sir. Okay, anybody else? Do we have a time? Somebody take yours?
Yeah, I've got the time. We did not have anybody else.
Okay. Do we have nobody else? Okay, we have no presentations. We'll start with our reports. And I don't have a report, and we'll go to the city attorney.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, the update, the city manager, the answers to the Union Pacific Railroad lawsuit. On behalf of the city, I filed an answer to that, answering the complaint in federal court. And I also filed an answer and a motion to dismiss on the complaint against me individually that they had filed, which is sort of unusual that they had done that. But both of those were filed, and so the case is properly in federal court now. Spoke to the lawyer for the Union Pacific Railroad yesterday. He works for a big law firm in Houston, and we discussed some schedule matters. He was asking me to agree to basically let them have their way and then just dismiss and I get to have what they want. I said, no, reasonable, fair, and ask the ordinance to ask the Union Pacific to give some basic courtesy to the city of Alpine to stop 50 feet before the intersection instead of 50 feet after. Of course, he didn't know any of the facts of the case or other issues about where the train is stopping, at local stopping. So I'm going to share that with him. We're starting the process for discovery. So moving forward, and I imagine within about 30 days, I should have a formal schedule order from the federal judge. I'll share that with the council. We will. I continue to have some dialogue with the Parkhill Smith Cooper lawyer. And just to see high figure for settlement and trying to educate them to realize that I think this doesn't reflect the value that was provided to the city of Alpine by what was done by Parkhill Smith Cooper. To have a final report on that with some pros and cons and some details on it for the next city council meeting, go to the executive session. So I get the final direction for the council. It's at the point now where either we settle it or they're going to go to litigation. So give them some education. Finally, the Councilor Stevens involved with more detailed report for some investigations that are doing with this case work done with Alpine Police Department. And I had some of that ready, but then it's some of the documentation with that I got from the county attorney's office was had some improper numbers on it for statewide criminal reporting system. Rather than that, those reform, so to speak, those records, and so I'll have those records plus the detail for the council.
So Rod, I appreciate that update. It's my understanding though that those records cannot be released from CGIS, and so there's no authority to have those released.
The CGIS records cannot be released. County attorney records can be released. So the records that were formed by CGIS, I'm having to go back and recreate those records directly from the county attorney's office. And it's the same records, it's just the sorting and sorting and formatting of those by CGIS can't be released.
So how long ago did you find this out? It's been a month ago, 6 weeks since the original request was made.
I found that out at 5 o'clock on Friday, last Friday afternoon. A phone call from County Attorney Stevens.
Okay. Well, we've been waiting a month for this. Thank you. And I'm sorry, just one and that's on both items. That's the 39 cases where you stated on October 7th, there was no probable cause. And 13 days later, you identified 32 cases, of which 9 were attributed to the Alpine Police Department where there were no reports filed. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So we're going to get
You get a detailed report on those two categories.
on both those categories. Okay. And have you discussed, it's clearly the chief of police ought to be able to see this, it's his organization. Have you discussed and met with the chief of police or the city manager on this topic?
I have, but as soon as I have the new report done, not based on CGIS, but based on county attorney records, I'll schedule a meeting with both the chief and city manager to go over the problem.
How long ago did you get the CGIS records?
It was about a week or 10 days ago.
Okay,
Approximately.
thank you.
trying to forward those to.
You got those records 10 days ago, Aaron?
I get those records on Thursday and in talking with Chief, the CJIS report, Rod, you're well aware, you can't have that. You can't distribute that to me either. I'm not authorized to have it.
I'll give it back to the county attorney and find it.
So I do not have the report. I'm not authorized to have it. It would be a misdemeanor if I had it.
Follow the directive, give it to the county attorney, and it's good.
And I think it's important that our police chief has ample time to review any information that you're going to provide. And the county attorney, quite frankly, has not reached out to Chief Martin at all. He's not made a phone call. I think Chief Martin worked with him for three and a half years and never once picked up the phone. I know Steve Houston. Steve was a parishioner of my father's for 5 or 7 years. I used to sit in the pew next to him in church. He never once has called me and expressed any concerns. So we've gone through, Chief's gone through a lot of detail on his case files. I can tell you what, there's not 71 cases with error out there, Rob. I'm real interested to find your 71 cases.
More questions? Eric?
No.
Okay. We'll go over to the city manager report.
Right. Let me do a screen share for everybody. So, all right. I think everybody can see that. Megan, you can see that online, fine?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Ramon. All right, let's jump right into it. And I did share, I wanted to keep tonight's report a little bit shorter because I know we've got the election and several other things going on across the community. First and foremost, I wanted to share with everybody the view on our daily reported cases here in Texas. This comes straight off the New York Times website. You can see where we had the peak in July, came back down in September, had that trend up. And then adjacent to that is the daily reported deaths. And if you remember, ACTA would talk extensively about usually a 2 to 3 week lag from the time we saw a peak in case counts or the deaths were coming to 3-4 weeks at that. One of the interesting things I just want to point out in this particular meeting is you see the trend up in the case counts, and then we look over at the deaths. We see a little bit of a peak here. I think a lot of folks are really curious whether the death counts are going to increase at a similar rate to what we saw with the case counts. So that's one of those pieces. Looking across Texas, now this is the same source data, the New York Times website. They do a nice job at really highlighting the red areas. Of course, I'm circling on El Paso, Culberson, Hudspeth County area over here. And I think as everybody's acutely aware, El Paso has had a significant rise in cases and a lot of concern coming out of that particular county, not just in the region, but across the state and in a neighboring state as well. The next piece that we look at are these metrics to follow, the hospital bed occupancy, new COVID infections, the infection reproduction rate, and then our testing positivity rate, and then of course the goal of our average weekly testing. What we see on this next source file is really Brewster County. We're still in that, I call it the tier 3. We're not all the way up at the top of the risk level. We're one layer below that. Our daily new cases, 15.5 per 100K. In comparison to El Paso is like at 180. Okay, so their Culverson's actually up there quite high as well. The infection rate, so the R0 rate, is at 1.04. Our positive test rate is at 2.0. Remember, we want that to be below 5. We still are getting pretty good testing in to our area. And then, of course, our ICU headroom used. Of course, we've got Rick Flores on the phone this evening, but Rick and I talk at least once a week, if not more, on the capacity at our hospital. Moving forward from that, the R0 factor across the state of Texas. You remember last council meeting, we were a little bit below the 1 threshold. Now we've come a little above, and that's reflective in some of the increased case counts.
Still not bad. That's close to 1.
Yeah, very close to 1. And then this is the Johns Hopkins University status report that comes out. The county, of course, is posting this every day. It shows how many active cases, how many people are in the hospital here. We've got 4 listed right now. And then certainly look at some of the other indicators around population, race, ethnicity, and age. Of course, we know as people get older, they're more susceptible to COVID, and something that we have to think about from our community perspective, because we do have several retirees to certainly be in consideration with. Then I wanted to just touch on some of the local events, because I think most folks know that Art Walk Gallery Night group met this weekend. Their board came together and talked about how many of their travelers come in here from El Paso, and there was a concern, as well as Midland, Odessa. There's been a rise in cases in Ector and Midland County. And so the idea was that their board voted to go ahead and postpone till the springtime Art Walk. And that was, always, I hate to see it, events canceled. I think, we from a city perspective have been doing a really nice job at promoting outdoor type activities where people can social distance, they can wear their mask, and our artists and our people that drive a living here in Alpine, they still have that opportunity to drive that living. And with that being said, our Wednesday Music and Mercantile continues to be successful. We're seeing, really nice representation of people there. It's a nice outdoor event. The Halloween Trail and Treat was very successful. We had over 150 kiddos show up, over 500 bagged treats. And what we did find is that the kids getting out, getting into the park was the most popular representation of that versus trying to drive through. So, I get calls every day, just as I'm certain everybody on council does too, about what's that right decision to make. And I think we've struck a nice balance with our community. And yeah, COVID, no, I don't think anybody would raise their hand and say, hey, I want to get COVID. But how do we best encourage people to make good decisions? I think the other thing that we talk heavily about is using a thermometer, taking temperature, being very vigilant about when somebody goes and they get sick, not to go into a group of other people and infect other people, which is interesting because that was part of Rick Flores's my conversation in El Paso, is that there seemed to be a lot of communal gatherings, family type gatherings, and one person didn't want to miss out on it, so they would show up and they were a little ill, and if they had COVID, they would pass it around. So that's certainly not the only reason COVID's spreading in El Paso, but one of them. And I think those are decisions that we can all make individually. So
I'm glad you clarified on the art wall. How come you canceled it?
right, yeah, I heard that too.
I had no idea about it.
Yeah.
And so, well, no, you got to cancel it. I said, no, it didn't.
Yeah.
So I hadn't even met with the council or the city manager on this.
Well, and I heard that you had canceled it, and then I heard that the judge had canceled it, and
Yeah, I heard both ways.
and I knew, we had in our staff meeting last week, Chris had informed us that the board was going to get together and make a determination. So that's why I wanted to pull down their posting from there. So that's where we're at.
So relative to our walk though, that doesn't preclude businesses from staying open. And so I've talked to a number of businesses and they're going to stay open anyway.
Right.
Without a formal art walk, which in my view is a healthy thing to be able to work Congress for.
Yeah. I tell you from an economics perspective, my disappointment for some of the businesses is that this is a big
Big time.
marking point for them. I
No
mean,
question.
they're looking to close their year strong.
Yep.
And I think Carrie and team have done a really nice job at working through safety protocol, safety plan, spreading the thing out over 3 blocks plus the alleys.
Yep.
So I did reach out to Carrie to gain some insight from her. I have not received a call back from her yet, but we do need businesses to stay open. We are going to move forward with the holiday parade or the Christmas parade. We'll do that first weekend in December, like normal. And if we only have 12 to 15 floats in there, we only have 12 to 15. But I think beyond, parades are great because everybody's outside. And then it really promotes some of the downtown. We'll have for the Thursday night that the Downtown Association does, which will come right on the tail end of our Wednesday night mercantile. Then the Downtown Association will start their Thursday night things. We're going to have the nice fire truck that was restored over at the visitor center. What Eddie was sharing with Heather and I is that most people just want to go in there and get pictures in there. So we'll have that. We'll do a couple buzz around towns for anybody who wants a ride, but generally speaking, that's how we'll go.
That was a big standout last year when we had it out there. I mean, folks were really thrilled about seeing it back on the road. And then, of course, we had the folks get on it right around, especially the kids. And they got a big blast out of it. Everybody was thrilled with it. So.
And the nice thing is we've got plenty of hand sanitizer. We've got plenty of Clorox wipes. So we can get things wiped down and keep things real safe for those that want to enjoy that. And I think it is very important for our local businesses, our local artisans. They've got, they've had a challenging year, and we really need them to be successful so that they don't go under.
So that's going to be on the 4th of December.
So let's see, the first is a
Oh, I'm
Monday,
sorry, Thursday, so it'll be the 3rd.
5th, Saturday,
It's on Saturday.
targeting that Saturday.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep
I think the one group that does the craft show, they're gonna do that out at the Cowboy Church
Oh, great.
during the day, and then we'll have that in the evening,
Super.
the parade in the evening. So they'll work congruently.
Any data back on how many got the most recent COVID test?
I did not get
No
the
data.
stats
Okay.
on how many people tested.
Okay.
But I'll,
So the good news is testing's going up and positivity rates going down.
right. Yeah, I mean, across the board, the testing is significantly up. Our positivity rate at 2%.
Yeah.
Looks good. I mean, 15 active cases, a couple weeks ago, we were at 26.
Yep. Yep.
So
That's good.
we're definitely,
And, what I've seen is there's a lot of folks wearing the mask now automatically, and even in the vehicles. I see a lot of that. A lot of our tourists also are wearing their masks, so which is good.
well, and tomorrow night, if you go out to the Mercantile, there's a lady, this is where I got mine. I mean, she
Yeah.
makes these homemade ones and they've got the little strap on the back that you can adjust with a bead. I mean, it's just wonderful.
And the food's great.
And the food's
The
perfect.
food is
too, so
phenomenal. Jeez, yeah.
That's it.
Good
That's it.
sourdough cinnamon bread.
Okay, any city staff updates?
No, not tonight. We'll try to get to the meeting so people can go home.
Okay, public hearings? We have none.
No, sir.
Consent agendas, the minutes, financial reports, department written report, board appointments, etc. Notice to the public, the following items are of routine administrative natures. The council has been furnished with background and support material on each item and/or it has been discussed at a previous meeting. All items will be acted upon by one vote without being discussed separately unless requested by a council member, in which event the item or items will immediately be withdrawn or for individual consideration in its normal sequence after the items not requiring separate discussion have been acted upon. The remaining items will be adopted by one vote. City manager.
Mr. Mayor, we do have 8 items on the consent agenda this evening. The first one is the approval of the minutes from the city council meeting on October 20th, 2020. The remaining 7 are for conditional use permits for outdoor dining, which was an action that council took earlier this year. And this clears us on with the health inspector and the state level on these conditional use permits.
So, Mr. Mayor, I propose we approve the consent agenda as written, including the conditional use permits for outside dining for Century Bar and Grill, Taste and See, Judy's Bread and Breakfast, Cedars Coffee, Santana's Scoops Creamery, and Old Window Bike Bar and Grill.
There's a second.
I'll second that.
Maybe second. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, like sign, motion carries. Thank you all very much. We'll move on to item 8, information or discussion items, making recommendations, discuss, city manager, that's yours.
Mayor, item 1 is just a discussion on the order of the meeting for November 17th, because at times in the past, we've had a separate meeting to canvass and swear in. Travel schedules and things like that, it really is conducive to have the canvassing and swearing in on the 17th. Would like to pull that up to really right after our reports, I'm sorry, right after the public comments, to allow for, if there's any changes on council for those people to be sworn in. So you'll see an adjustment on the schedule, but I just want to make sure everybody's clear. And if there was any reservations on it, to let me know.
I don't see a problem with it.
Works for me.
Ramon, Maria, Betty, you okay with that?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Good deal.
Perfect, thank you.
Councilman Stevens.
Yes, sir. Thanks very much, Mayor, and hopefully you can all hear me. I'll make this relatively short. The Alpine Country Club, as you recall, we give a discount for use of water to water basically the land that the city owns, so they can maintain that as a golf course. They maintain all their other own operational costs. Their current agreement with the city has expired. They would like to extend that agreement. And so I spent a fair amount of time with Patricia and her husband, Andy, who are leading the country club, and really walked through, a number of areas and got an update on the country club and the golf course. I just have to tell you, in my time on council and having had the opportunity to spend time down there, they have done a phenomenal job with the country club facility itself, as well as the golf course, as well as the greens and the fairways themselves. What I want to do is just bring council up to speed that the outcome of that meeting is we're going to have a meeting with Patricia and Andy. So Patricia is the chairman of the country club. Her husband, Andy, is actually the groundskeeper right now. They're both doing that for free. And we're going to meet with them. I suggested that we get Eric and Scott Perry and Johnny and potentially Mike Macias to meet with them to really talk about a long-term water strategy to meet the golf course's needs, as well as I think meet the city's needs. And so my intent tonight was to bring that up to council, let you know, golf course is being well managed, well taken care of, country club's working it well, but they seek a discussion with the city about the use of water. Ideally, they'd like to use as much affluent water as possible. But, you know, part of the discussion, and I know Andy talks with Mike Macias regularly, he can't get all of the affluent water that he'd want because the water SCADA system's not all the way up and running. There are other affluent water users, and they've got to make sure they meet the health and safety standards as well. Plus, they can use affluent water on one side of the golf course, but not on the other side of the golf course. So I think there's a great opportunity for discussion. I'm going to facilitate that. Eric will take the lead from here's the game plan and strategy. And then based upon that dialogue, we'll come back to council with a recommendation. In my view, the minimum would be that the city continue to give the golf course the discount on water that we give them already. What I'd like to do is figure out how they use less well water and more affluent water. And I think that would be a benefit to not only the country club, but also the city. So that's, I want to make sure that council is up to speed on that. Any questions?
No, I talked to Patricia a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
And the golf course does seem to be in better shape.
Yep.
And she was asking me about the water situation and the parking lots as well. I refer that to you.
Yep.
Since they're in your ward.
Yeah, thank you. Yep. And she mentioned that. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yep.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah, she said it was a good meeting.
Oh, good deal.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's looking better. Memberships. climbing.
Membership's up.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's another added for it.
Yep.
And she informed me that it was no longer a private, country club.
It never has been.
It never has been.
So the country club is private for those who want to pay dues. You can go use the course all you want, but I played on the course before. It was, last I played, green
Yeah,
fees,
that
$35.
She had me a little confused. I said, wait a minute. I know that the club itself, the
Yeah, club's
building,
private.
that's your private club.
Yeah, but I would also say, I've been to a lot of events there. They've rented out their hall for private events. So while they got a club, they're not bashful about taking on resources or taking on money. I think the other thing that was important came out of that. We had a good discussion about whether it made sense from an economic standpoint for them to open a restaurant there. And Patricia's comment was, nope, have no interest in opening a restaurant. They would have to put in, to meet the fire standard requirements, a hood with sprinklers, which they're not interested in doing. They'd have to do a whole bunch of items. So they certainly have a kitchen area for food prep, which is good for the banquets they do in there, but they're not trying to make a restaurant out of that. So they get sandwiches and chips and things like that. So my sense is they're doing a good job.
Yeah, I also, told her to talk to Chris Weber. He will put some signs up along 57 and 118.
Yeah.
Pointing to the golf course.
That's a good idea.
You know, a lot of people, I get asked, y'all have a golf course here? I said, absolutely, so I have to give directions to the very little signage at all for it. So I think that's something that, she might have to take up with Chris.
Well, we probably have to do that because we'd be the municipality requesting it.
Yeah, he would make us pay for it.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. We talked to Chris
Yep.
Rugy about that.
Yeah, I would think we'd be able to fit somewhere into our hot funding. Because that's the other thing we talked about is the number of tournaments they have going on. And I asked her to pull the data together about the number of people that come from outside. She said other than what happened with COVID, she said tournaments are mostly, they bring a lot of outside folks in. And she talks about people who come in from Austin, basically spend a week here. They got to drive here, drive day back, so they got 5 days here in Alpine. That's hotels, restaurants, food, and everything else.
Yeah, we have different venues here. A lot of the husbands will ask me, do y'all have a golf course here? Because the wife's out shopping, we don't want to hang around. So, yeah.
So Mayor, are you only saying that we need signs, keeping the people there or one there also?
What was that again?
Like the signs for the country club, are you saying only should be people to it or one there also?
Well, to lead them to it.
Lead them to it. Yeah,
I
I'll-
think we also need one, like, the country club right there.
Well, it's pretty much when you drive in, it's all right there. You gotta check in, you're involved, you gotta go to the
push out.
pro shop, which is part of the country club.
But Lucy, I'll mention that when we see Trish next.
Yeah, but we can, you know, I'm sure we can take care of that.
Puntos acá en Chicopán.
Oh,
it's not-
Yeah. It's got 2 entryways.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, they got the top one on the porch and then they have one back on the west side of the building where you
I
go up
didn't
the
even know
stairs.
there's another one.
Yeah, there's 2.
Yep.
Okay. Any more, Councilman Stevens?
No, sir, thank you.
Okay, let's move on to item number 9. Action items to be accompanied by a brief statement of facts for funds that come in from, if applicable. Action items limited up to 10 per meeting. After being called upon by the mayor or mayor pro tem, citizens are required to state their name and the ward in which they reside. Priority will be given to citizens of Alpine and those who own business or property in the city. Individuals who do not live in or own business or property in the city limits of Alpine will be allowed to speak at this time available. City manager.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, item 1 is to discuss, consider, and take appropriate action on the first reading of ordinance 2020-11-01, an ordinance of the enterprise zone for Big Bend Regional Medical Center. This is a follow-up from the information and discussion topic from last week or 2 weeks ago. Have to have a motion in a second
Yes,
to
sir. We've done the
open the
motion.
discussion.
So I'll make the motion that we take action to discuss and consider the first reading of ordinance 2020-11-01, an ordinance of the enterprise zone for Big Bend Regional Medical Center. And we'll get the ball rolling.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Do we have a discussion?
Yeah, so one of the things, and I know, Rick, you're on there, I'm looking for you somewhere on the screen.
Top right.
Upper right, there you are, gotcha. One of the things I asked about was, because I expressed some concern about the rehab element. I think fundamentally, I think it makes good sense to put the the enterprise zone in place, as I mentioned, because it's using other people's money, not money here out of Alpine, but if someone's gonna get it from the state, we ought to get it as well as anyone else. But one of the questions I asked was from a priority standpoint, particularly with rehab, and I'd asked that you go, talk with the other rehab facility folks or one of your folks, and as of yesterday, at least the ones I talked to, that had not yet occurred. So I'm just wondering from your perspective, what's going on?
Well, thank you, Mr. Stevens. What we did was we ran some reports, we ran some data. We did not approach them yet. And the reason is based on the volumes that are being requested of us to provide rehabs and data that is available out there, not just for the rehab facility across town, but for the home health facility. They too also do rehab. At this point, we don't believe this will impact either of the organizations significantly. And after a meeting I had today up in Fort Stockton, our goal is to bring additional rehab numbers down. We're looking at sharing our orthopedic surgeon with Fort Stockton. I met with Betsy Briscoe. She's the CEO of Pecos County Memorial Hospital today, and the providers. They're very excited to send business our way instead of rerouting it up to Odessa. So that in turn creates additional volumes for the whole Tri-County area. So that's where we're at today.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Rick. But when I asked and I thought there was an agreement, it's kind of hard to sit on council and support something when someone says they're going to do something and they don't. And I did. So I tell you, the feedback I got was different. So that's a different bothersome perspective. I would also again, I'm after using other people's money, so I think the enterprise zone is good. I've got lots of input as I talk to my constituents about higher priority requirements in Alpine than rehab. One of the key ones has been, what goes on with dialysis, because like it or not, we got a high population of those who require dialysis. They have to go to Fort Stockton. It consumes an awful lot of time. And a lot of people were asking me, well, why wouldn't that be a higher priority than, putting in a sports rehab, given we have that capability now, and there is no dialysis capability here in Alpine?
Well, bottom line is dialysis requires much, much more, and the involvement is significantly higher. In addition, we've asked 2 companies to come out and provide, or not provide, but take a look and evaluate to determine if they can, I'm going to use your principle, use other people's money principle. Both companies have come out and have done an assessment. We are still waiting on some decisions to be made and a final reading of what they're going to do or plan to do if they're considering to do it. And that's bring in a dialysis company, and they're 2 of the biggest players in the nation. So that's where we're at right now. And that would be the ideal situation, because contrary to popular belief, the volumes for dialysis aren't there.
Okay, well, I appreciate that perspective. $3 million is a capital investment. That's your all's fundamental decision. But when it comes to making sure we have the needs for the city, I think that's a joint responsibility between the hospital and those of us who are in positions that can influence that. I really think we need to have more discussion about the priorities.
That's fine. I have no issue with that. More than welcome to have further discussion, and we can take it to a meeting with you, the city manager, whoever you deem appropriate. I have no issues with that.
I appreciate that, Rick. I said, I just disappointed when I asked, it didn't happen.
Well, I think I misinterpreted what you were requesting. So because the sound system was kind of had opportunities for improvement, it was difficult to hear all the requests I thought we heard and appropriately, but that is not exactly what I heard, but that's okay. I have no issue with that, sir.
Fair enough. Phone works both ways.
Very good. So I guess we can table this. Is that what the request is, or what are we saying here?
I think, Rick, I'd really like to understand and see some data to understand the sorts of cases that are going in at the hospital. One of my concerns, frankly, is the hospital is so critically important. In my time in Alpine, it's declared bankruptcy twice. Okay, and there's a huge fear about this medical facility continuing to be financially successful in Alpine, because if it goes down, then we got lots of issues to go off and work. And the confidence level, and I'm just a simple business guy, is pretty low when it comes to understanding what's going on. So I do believe there's an opportunity to get a better understanding of primary care that the hospital's seeing, understand the relationship with healthcare providers, and how we balance it in such a way that makes the hospital wildly successful and ensures we've got the healthcare needs of the population of Alpine. And since we've not seen any data, so in my view, what would be really helpful is to be able to sit down and have a workshop to see what's going on, see how that ties together. If all of that's taken care of, and all of the healthcare providers in Alpine and the surrounding area, which I know you service, Presidio, Fort Davis, Marfa, Marathon, Alpine, and Fort Stockton, that'd be great. But it's hard for me, who's never seen that data, and I think it's hard for council to say, hey, let's go push this, and then ask the question, do we have the right healthcare needs to be able to meet our needs of what goes on? I mean, we had Dr. Billings came in when he put his facility in place. He came before council. He shared the facts and data about the number of cases and the issues that he was working. And frankly, it was an easy support to go after the federal funding that Dr. Billings is getting. And so I think it's important in a relationship between the city and the hospital to have a very similar discussion. And thus far, all we've seen is, hey, would you support us on an enterprise zone standpoint? And I get that, but I think there needs to be a broader discussion.
Okay, I can embrace that. I understand where you're coming from, Mr. Stevens. I have no issues with that. I'm not going to guarantee I'm putting a workshop together. I'll sit back with council and our organization and try to put together something that's a little bit more conducive for everybody to understand. And then we'll take it from there.
That'd be great, Rick. And I think what council may do is go reach out to the other healthcare activities and look and say, how do we get that integrated in such a way so that based upon the data you've got and the other data we see from others, we can integrate. And as I said, I'm wildly supportive of the hospital investing $3 million. Don't get me wrong, and applaud you for doing that. Just want to make sure we're balanced in terms of what the investments are and meet the needs of the city.
Well, I appreciate your input, sir. Anything else?
Any more? Any discussion? Okay,
So-
seeing none, let's go ahead and take a vote on it. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All you want?
Yeah.
That sounds on, yep.
Okay, I asked for any more discussion.
No.
Okay, seeing none, we'll vote on it. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, like sign. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, motion fails.
And just to close the comment, my intent will be to bring this back to council in such a way that we can get it passed.
And
Thank you guys very much. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, Rick. Okay, let's go to item 2. City manager.
Mayor, item 2 is to discuss, consider, and take appropriate action on resolution 2020-11-03 for the renovation of the old schoolhouse. I did put information, a brief write-up in your packet for you to review ahead of time.
Okay.
So I'll get the ball rolling. I propose we approve resolution 2020-11-03 for the renovation of the old schoolhouse.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion?
Yeah,
Okay,
so Eric, help me understand. We've not talked about this one. I didn't call ahead of time. Basically, what this resolution does is allows us to go after the federal funds without having to do a competitive bid. And the concern is if we don't get on it now, we lose the opportunity to get the money.
Correct. So we have the CREF funds, the coronavirus relief funds available. And our goal with this project, as we've talked, is to spread our employees out, moving billing and finance over to the old schoolhouse, which is also an area where the community comes into. And we all know we have a very small lobby area right now. So this will open up the lobby area for the community as well. There is a stipulation in the law, in the state law, which we wrote into the resolution, that allows us for these health and safety type of situations to forego the competitive bid process and basically hire local contractors. And so that's what we're aiming for with this resolution. The CREF funds have to be utilized before December 31st. Megan, David Hale, and myself have walked the facility a couple times. We've also got Abby Branch, who's given us some consulting on the historic side of it. But we want to be able to utilize these dollars before the end of this year. And those are the dollars we're targeting. And if we had to go out to an RFP, and then by the time we ranked and scored, we'd be too far into December for them to spend the money before the end of the year.
do we have an estimate on this?
To get the facility available for us to move in, we're low side 60, high side 100. So the phase one is to get us into the facility. It's going to open the wall, like when you walk into that front, I don't know if you remember the library area used to be on the right.
Yep.
We're going to open that up. That's where our billing team will sit. There's a couple offices back in there as well. The left-hand side where their dining room was,
Yep.
we're going to leave that as a community gathering room. So that was a suggestion Abby had made. And then we'll clean up that kitchen area in the back, make that nice as well, which is back behind that dining space. And then in the back part of the building is where we'll have our finance offices. So there's 5 offices back there. Our first blush through there, we're really just going to clean, paint, have the new flooring in. We leave all of the old woodwork, all of the baseboards, the wainscoting, the chair rails, we leave all that in from a historical perspective. We also have 3 bathrooms in there. We'll renovate those as part of this first phase. And then that allows us to move in. Then what we'll do, so this resolution will allow us to get moved in and spaced out.
Okay.
Then phase 2 will be coming back and looking at the exterior of the building. And we'll look at other historical grant opportunities for that. And then some of the other reshaping we want to do internally. But the exterior, we obviously don't want to change anything about it, but we want to clean it up and then do some appropriate landscaping around it as well. Expand the ADA access into the facility as well in the front, and really make it look very nice again. But that will go after grants for those. That will be less time sensitive. This resolution for this evening is to allow us to use other people's money to get this first phase to allow us to move in. The other thing that does for us, so at City Hall, I mean, we're busting at the seams there. At Old City Hall, we're busting at the seams. So I can bring permitting and our building official over to current City Hall, space them out as well, right?
Yep.
And still have extra space at City Hall. And then that allows our water department to have all of that space in old City Hall too. So it's kind of this domino effect, and our real focus obviously is to get people more spaced out. And then from a community perspective, it's been tough because we've left the front door closed. We put in a walk-up window for people, but there's just no place to have any space in our current lobby. And if we think about the Sunshine House, it's like that beautiful entryway. And so when we open up the wall, it's really going to be able to allow people, we could have 6 or 8 people in there at a time and still be spaced out. Plus we'll have a restroom. There'll be access to a restroom there. That's something that a lot of our guests coming to City Hall are always asking, they got a little kid or somebody's got to use the restroom. So we'll have that access for them as well. So, but we definitely want to spend the correct funds on this, and this particular resolution would allow us to do that.
So we have the money?
We have the money.
Okay, so you already got the money. This is approval to go forward without having to do a competitive bid.
Correct.
In the middle of the process. Do you already have a contractor in mind that you've already vetted, or are we doing this in-house, or what's the plan?
We're going to do part of it in-house.
Okay.
So we've got a public works team that has worked really hard.
Yep.
And some of those team members really like to make a little extra money, some overtime dollars.
Oh, so, okay.
So we're going to push forward on some of this work with them on the weekends too,
Oh, good.
and give them an opportunity to make some Christmas money. And then we've also, obviously, like electrical,
Yeah, you get it.
we'll hire. And Megan and David were talking about a couple of the folks to do that. We do have the wall that we will take down.
Yep.
That we'll do that with one of the local contractors here. And most of the painting we'll do in-house. The flooring, obviously we'll have to farm that out. But the goal would be to have everything done before December 30th. I mean, we have to.
You have to in order to get the.
In order to get the free money. And then we'll come back and do additional work on top of that later on. But we want to use this free money.
Is there a cap on the amount of money that you have right now?
Well, so we just filed it was about a week and a half ago. So we're still looking at, do we have at the low end 60,000 or do we have closer to 90 to 100,000 in craft funds? So that's what Megan and I were talking about this morning. We obviously budgeted monies this year for some building renovations as well. So we've got all of that in the budget too.
Okay.
And so it's.
So time-wise, we get the November 16 meeting to approve it. Would that give us ample time? Or do you think?
Well, with this resolution, then we can move forward.
Get started
Yeah.
on it, okay.
Yeah, it's a resolution. All it requires is council to vote yes. And
And
then
you know, I'll
Mm.
support that.
yeah, yeah. And I think it's a wonderful thing for the community. It sat there vacant. And we
And
need to
it's
bring
a
some
good
life back.
historical building also with a lot of history behind it, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're not doing any major work in there. I mean, we're gonna work with Abby on kind of a longer term vision from a historical perspective, that we want to use the monies that we can get at the state and the federal level, really trickle down from feds to state,
Mhm.
to get us in there and then accomplish these short-term goals.
Or you're gonna be-
Eric,
Yes,
considering the historical perspective of the building, I understand there's a plaque in the front of the building that basically identifies as a historic site within the frame of the Brewster County Historical Society or Historical Commission. So it might be good to collaborate with the commission regarding any proposed changes to the building, especially the exterior, in the future.
yeah, absolutely.
But the interior, we can go ahead and remodel it without. using the proposal. It's just the outside of the slab of it.
And we're not doing anything substantive on the interior. I mean, we are opening up that one wall to allow for greater visibility. But that's it. I mean, really, it's just getting it cleaned back up. And I don't know if anybody here has been through it, but after the Sunshine House moved out, they left some debris in there. And in fact, if this approves, we're planning on having the roll off there by the end of the week, and this weekend, phase one starts getting all that junk out so we can get in there and get these dollars taken care of before the end of the year.
Right.
Good deal.
So, and I know for council too, you've not had a space over at City Hall other than council chambers, but we'll have an office there too. So, if the mayor needs to come in and do office work, or if a council member needed to come in, we'll have some extra space there. There won't be a lot of us there, but
Well, that's okay.
we do realize that there's times that citizens would like to meet with
Yep.
council at City Hall as well. So we want to provide that.
Good.
Or the old schoolhouse. I mean, it's going to be a great big room over there
Yeah.
to meet with people there too.
Good conference room also there.
Yeah.
Okay, any more discussion? If not, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you. So, Mr. Item, please, city manager.
Right. Mayor and City Council, item 3 is to discuss, consider, and take appropriate action for the approval of the city attorney's September 2020 invoice. And that was included in your packet as well.
So to get the ball rolling, I propose we approve the city attorney's September 2020 invoice.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion's made and second. Okay, discussion.
So,
Sir.
yeah, so, Rod, there's a number of questions I have, and it's more for information, just trying to understand. I look back and this is for the September, not October. What I find interesting, and this may be a comment as opposed to a question, But the prep for municipal court, even though it lasted nearly 4 hours, is only, just slightly over a half hour. That should be a normal time for prepping for the municipal court docket.
And on the types of cases, when I arrive in municipal court, and a fair amount of time reviewing cases before court begins. The station there would be something that we have done separately. So, the time I spent reviewing files was, to me, adequate for the court that we go.
I'm not sure those you support have agreed with that, but we've already had that discussion. I noted on the 15th of September, this was in preparation for city council. There was a review of TOMA for employee request for a closed versus open hearing, and a draft letter requesting city attorney general agenda to be heard in open session. I'll just comment. I would think you'd know the law well enough. While you presented information, there's certainly been contra information because you're not an employee of the city of Alpine.
I'll receive a letter from me regarding that.
Oh yeah, I know, I saw it, I got it. I'm just commenting, you're not an employee and you're not a member of the council. So TOMA doesn't always apply from an employee request versus an open versus closed hearing. I'll leave it at that. I have no more questions.
Okay, any more? Okay, we're gonna go ahead and vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, opposed, like sign. There's some folks that are not voting. I'm gonna ask again, all those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All those opposed, raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3. 3.
Betty, what did you vote?
My hand's up there.
Did you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Or-
I think you voted. It was
Okay.
three opposed.
Okay.
1, 2 again.
Okay,
Okay,
I got it.
okay, so motion to pay that, fails.
What was the score? What is it?
It failed,
Oh, failed, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
2-3.
2-3, thank you. On the next one?
All right.
Okay,
Item-
order number 4.
Number 4 is to discuss, consider making a recommendation to the city council on a conditional use permit to approve conditional use permit for rezoning from a C1 to an R4 for a mobile home. Property identification address is 2607 West Highway 90. Legal description is Block 9, Section 29, GH and SARR, Abstract 3991, Alpine, Texas 79830. The property owner is Arvind Gandhi, Texas.
Okay, yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I propose that we approve the conditional use permit for rezoning from a C1 to an R4 for a mobile home. The property identified as 2607 West Highway 90. Legal description is in the agenda. The property owner, Arvind Gandhi, and of Texas.
Okay, there's a second.
I'll second that.
Motion seconded. Any discussion?
I have lots of discussion
Lots of
on this.
discussion. Okay.
Yeah, and I have to admit, it pains me to make the motion because I am not in favor of having more mobile homes in Alpine, which essentially is what this would approve. But it. But I think the reason there's two things. One, normally this should go to the Planning and Zoning Commission for there to review and making a recommendation to council. Planning and Zoning has not been able to reach quorum, so they've not been able to do this. I had a discussion with Paresh Yanni. He asked me to come have a meeting with him, which I did. I spent the better part of 40 minutes with him. And this is for the property. It's the Holiday Inn Express. It's an important property here in Alpine because it really does provide, I'm sorry, this is
Hampton.
I'm sorry, this is the Hampton, I'm sorry, the Hampton Inn. This does provide an opportunity to, for them to get housing available for workers that they can't hire locally, which blows my mind. And so here we are in the city of Alpine, and people are worried about being able to find jobs. He's got jobs. He can't get anyone to fill the jobs. They live here, so he's bringing people up, and he doesn't have any housing for them. So he wants to put the trailers in to be able to provide affordable housing so they can bring their families up, because it's the workers doing this, and he wants to keep the families together. And so when I think about this, I look and say, don't want more trailers, but it is on the edge of town. It's not an issue in the surrounding area around the Hampton, so that's one item. The second is, it pains me that he's got to bring people in from out of town to go work and maintain, in my mind, a first-class hotel. It's one of the better ones, and we've got some great ones here, but that one's a terrific hotel. And it also pains me that the Planning and Zoning Commission didn't get a chance to work it. All that said, I think in this case, it's the right thing to go do if there's ever a change in course. I know they pack the trailers up and move them, but they can't get workers and they get housing for them. So that's a long way of coming around. The Holiday Inn Express is exactly the same issue. So I'd expect to see that come forward as well. And Paresh did ask our indulgence to go work this, and I told him I would champion the cause, bringing it forward. So that's the background behind it.
Okay, how many trailers are we looking at?
We've got two.
Yeah, they're talking about
The
two.
ones that are
Yeah.
parked over here.
On the, yeah, they'd be on the west side of, they'd end up on the west side of the property.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're-
Yep.
The other side of the, so the parking lot's on the east side.
Yeah, the other side
The other
storage.
side.
I saw two trailers.
Yeah, they're ready for them.
Yeah, they're ready for them, yeah, yeah. And he's been frustrated because he's tried to get it to P and Z to bring it forward. He's tried to follow the process. He's done the permitting work. He's been out with David. They've had all the right discussions. But this is one case, I think we want to support a business who's trying to do the right thing.
Any more discussion? Let's vote on it. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Raise them where I can see them. There you go.
Okay.
Okay, it's unanimous.
Yeah, fine.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right, I think I'm next, Mayor.
You're next again.
Discuss and consider making a recommendation to City Council concerning a conditional use permit application for a non-conforming use of structures and premises and non-conforming characteristics of use. The property identification address is 1107 North 7th Street, Alpine, Texas, 79830. The legal description is North Block 25, Lot 1 through 8. Property owner is Rhonda Cole.
So
Yes, sir.
again, I'll help get the ball rolling. I propose that council approve the conditional use permit application for a non-conforming use of structures and premises and non-conforming characteristics of use at the property at 1107 North 7th Street in Alpine. The legal description, North Block 25, Lot 1 through 8. The property owner is Rhonda Cole. And unless I'm missing, I'll be quiet. There needs to be a second.
I'll
Yeah,
second
wait a
that.
second.
Thank you.
Okay, in second, now you can.
Now I can talk. Thank you, Mayor. Unless I'm missing something, this is Rhonda trying to get legal.
Correct. She just bought the property.
Yep.
And we have situations like this in Alpine, not very often, but this particular one, you've got 11 structures on 8 lots. It really, we don't have a classification for a mobile home community. We do have R4 classification, which is a single mobile home on a lot. This is 8 lots. There's
Oh.
11 structures on there. So the only way to have it legal is to actually have a conditional use permit
Or she'd have to boot 3 of the trailers,
and rearrange other ones
rearrange it.
to fit onto the lots.
Where's that approximately, Frontier?
So no, yeah, close to it, but you know where Del Rio and Sanderson are?
Right.
So between like 7th and 8th, Del Rio and Sanderson, right in.
Whose ward is that in?
That's right by Maria. It's not too far from where Maria is.
I think it's Ward 3.
If
it's-
Give it to Billy.
If it's up by on Del Rio,
Is the
Like
the
up by
transition
the-
line Del Rio?
Yeah, no,
where is it? You said it was up like by the railroad tracks.
No, it's between 7th and 8th Street, Maria.
Oh, maybe that is mine.
Yeah, I think you go up to 9th Street.
Okay.
Ninth Street.
It's actually really close to where I live. I think a couple blocks away from where I live.
So,
Hey, has the planning and zoning up to talk about this one?
They did. They were able to meet and talk about it. They recommended it. You know, I think the bigger item that planning and zoning's got to go through is a relook at the zone classifications that we have and our whole master plan. Because we don't have a classification for a mobile home community right now.
Yeah, those were grandfathered way back.
Right, and the way our current zoning sets up, in R4 has a specific dimension of lot,
Yep.
Setbacks. This is just a non-conforming section of land, really.
Maybe we need
But
to
there
say.
aren't there mobile homes around there?
yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them.
Right, it's right next to the Frontier Village, right?
So looking at that, so across Sanderson between 9th and 10th is another exact one like this.
Yeah,
And then going east, I guess, across 9th is another one. And then between Del Rio and Sanderson, between 7th and 8th, there's another one. So that probably ought to be, P and Z ought to take a look at that whole block there and figure out almost what the strategy is. Because there's one element that says, hey, Rhonda bought it, she's trying to be legal to work it, that makes sense. But ultimately, what's our long-term strategy to be able to go work that?
right.
And I think that's the longer-term issue that planning and zoning needs to go work.
Yeah, and I think our challenge, kind of back to what you were discussing on the previous item is we don't have enough housing right now. in Alpine. It's at a premium. So if you were to take these 11 and say, get rid of 3 of them, or
Yeah.
you had to get rid of 5 or 6 of them, that would really put even more of a strain on the community.
Can I ask another question? Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Maria.
I wanted to ask about if something happened and they ended up moving a trailer out for whatever reason, would they be able to replace it with a new trailer, or would they have to come back and talk about rezoning or getting, because the lots aren't the right size for a trailer? Would that be something that they'd have to come back to discuss to put a new trailer in, or would that just always be the case? They could always fit 11
Yeah.
trailers into 8 lots.
The same size, you can just replace it with another one.
Yeah, it would be on, and I'd have to get final verification from David on this, but on a conditional use permit, if they change things up, the conditional use permit will go away.
Yep.
Okay.
But if it's shown as a conditional use permit for a mobile home community, which that's what this cup would be, if you pulled one out, you could put one back on that and allow that to happen. Obviously, they would pay the permitting fees for the new structure.
Yeah, because we had that issue come up a couple of years ago where they took out an old raggedy one and they wanted to put another one back in its place. And there was a discussion on it, finally it was agreed that they could.
Yeah,
One for one, I think was what it was.
Yeah, the challenge, I think, on like Frontier Village, where some of them were sitting on individual lots, is they were wanting to put a bigger structure on there and the lot was too small to meet,
Yep.
meet the R4 requirement.
Well, P and Z's got some work in front of them.
Well, we start meeting, or not, we have to look at some, probably replacing some posts.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, part of our discussion from last week was really taking a look at all of those open positions and getting folks on there and getting them to commit, having them commit to wanting to do the work.
Right.
Yep.
That's a big problem. Okay, any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Ready, you got your hand up? Okay, there you go. Come on. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thanks.
Some
Sometimes I can't see because of her name.
All right, I think I have another one here. Discuss, consider making a recommendation to City Council concerning a special use permit application to add 25 machines to his game room business. Property identification address 204 West Murphy Street, Alpine, Texas 79830. Legal description is OT Block 56, lots 10 and 11, Little Mexico Cafe. Property owner is Travis Grausa.
So again, I'll get the ball rolling. I move that city council approve the special use permit application to add 25 machines to the game room business at 204 West Murphy Street in Alpine. The legal description OT Block 56, lot 10, 11, Little Mexico Cafe.
Okay, is there a
I'll
second?
second that.
Motion is made and second. Discussion. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'll just make my comments
Okay.
since I'm kind of the bull in the china closet tonight. I am not in favor of game rooms as a business. However, he's already got one. And if we approve this, the city gets an extra, how much per month for a machine?
We get 100 a month.
100 a month, so we get an extra $2,500. And in my view, you can argue about gaming or non-gaming. He's already got gaming in place. Well, we get $2,500 extra a month. It goes in the city balance sheet. I think it's a good idea to do.
And they will be getting the permit from us when we check on a regular basis.
Yes, we go out, and the way our ordinance reads is if the chief typically is the one that will go do the inspection, so he'll do random inspections. If he sees any illegal machines, then he has the authority to shut them down right away.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Pays for probably what, half a salary now?
It will.
The other one that he owns.
The one on, was it on Holland? Holland? Yeah. Across from what, Olive?
Yes.
Oh,
Any more discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The request is to add 25 additional machines, which means that how many are in there now?
8.
Well, 33, Ron.
There's 33 plus 25 more?
No. Total of 33, 25 plus the current 80 he's got.
Okay. And the Little Mexico Cafe, is that what used to be the jalapenos?
Yes, right over there
Okay.
on Murphy Street, right off the 6th,
Yeah. Okay.
corner 6th and Murphy.
Is that, whose ward is that in? Is that in yours, Ramon? Or Lucy?
That's Lucy's.
no, that was my home.
There's mine is from 7th Street on down.
Barely in yours. Barely in
Well,
yours.
barely in yours.
Barely.
Okay. Who's the owner? Who's the owner of this place?
Travis Rosa?
Travis Pursuit?
He owns the property, Travis does.
Okay.
Any more questions? Okay, we have a vote. All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, unanimous. Motion carries.
Yeah, and Ramon, just to fill it out, I'm just reading, the applicant was Fan Nguyen. And I don't know him, but that's who made the application.
Then
What's it? I'm sorry.
Fan Nguyen.
So then item 7 is to discuss, consider, and take appropriate action to approve resolution 2020-11-07, the Region 19 interlocal agreement for the utility department to utilize Region 19 as a co-op and utilize their cooperative purchasing agreements.
Yes, sir.
So, Mr. Mayor, I'll get the ball rolling. I propose we approve resolution 2020-11-07, the Region 19 interlocal agreement for the utility department to utilize Region 19 as a co-op and utilize the cooperative purchasing agreement to save money.
Okay, second, there's a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made in second, discussion.
So, Eric, what are they gonna buy through them? I have no idea what Region 19 does.
Megan, do you remember off the top of your head what those actual parts were?
Yes, so, and actually it's open for everyone, but the utility department requested it. There's a vendor that they currently use. It's an electric supply. They're utilizing it for all their updating on their SCADA, the towers, all the little odds and ends that we don't necessarily get through some of the other vendors. It would just be quicker for them on their end if we had that agreement in place, so that if it does come to a certain level of funding, there's not a worry about it.
So they get a good price and they don't have to wait to get 3 bids?
Correct.
Hey, what can be better than that?
And it's open up to the whole entire city. It would be another cooperative purchasing agreement we have, like Texas Smart Buy, the Smart Board. We belong to several, so this is the one out of El Paso.
Terrific. Okay, thanks.
Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, unanimous again, thank you all very much. Let's go to item number 7, that'll be, I'm sorry, item number 8. Mr. Olivas.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Mayor. And the issue here is I make a motion that we approve action on proposed projects and projected costs for improvement of facilities at Lujan Baseball Field. And as we all know, this is a continuation from of the last meeting. And of course, Lujan Baseball Field is found in Ward 2. And I don't know whether Gio was able to get the slides up on the screen so I can show you what I would like to
Gotta make the
focus
motion.
on.
Ramon,
Yes.
you have to make the motion first, and then it's gotta be second before we go into the discussion.
Okay, I would like to make a motion that we take appropriate action on proposed projects and proposed costs for improvement of facilities at Lujan Baseball Field, which is part of Centennial Park in Ward 2.
Okay,
I'll second that.
okay, motion's made in second, discussion now. Ramon,
Yeah,
Gio,
can
do you
get
have that file?
I don't believe Gio's on. He's handling the elections, Eric, and it's close to 7.
Okay.
Okay.
Nothing was forwarded to me. Sorry, Ramon.
Okay, we have them in our
Yeah,
package.
yeah, we've got,
Packets.
they're in the packets.
They're in the package, Ramon.
Yeah.
So
They're in the packet?
Yeah.
Okay, basically, what I'd like to just focus on right quickly is the improved modifications to facilities at Lujan Field would include putting rubber stoppers on the benches that are found out there, because the bench edges are rough, they're jagged, and they are unsafe, as well as a rating around both of the benches to keep specifically kids from falling off. The second item is the installation or replacement of the water fountain that's out there right now, which is just, as I mentioned before, a lead pipe sticking out of the ground with a spigot, with a better fountain that has a spigot that for adults, one for kids, and one for pets. And the third thing is the dugouts. The dugouts are in need of repair. You need to take a closer look at them. The concrete sitting area is just in bad shape. And the first step leading into the dugouts are a little bit of a challenge, especially for young kids. Their railings should be installed for safety's sake. The other thing is to, of the trees that we discussed about coming into, donated to the city, that if there's a possibility, maybe 5 to 10 of those trees that could also be used to be planted around the outskirts of the baseball field. And another thing is to consider the purchase of 4 goals for soccer, and those can be placed down towards the north end of the field because there's plenty of space where kids can play baseball, but at the same time they can also, for those that like to soccer practice or play soccer, there's ample space for that. And the last item is the, and I know we discussed lights as a possibility of not to reconsider, but when you go out there and you'll see there is a light pole, and that light pole basically illuminates the backstop area and the front part of the baseball field. And what I'm proposing is that 2 additional light posts like of the same nature be installed, one on the southern part of the field and the other on the north end of the field. Now, these are security lights primarily, but as soon as it starts getting dark, it would be good for the participants and those that are at the field to have some measure of safety when leaving the area. And that's basically it. Hopefully you got in the packet a budget proposal that I submitted, and the bench covers would not, I would estimate, cost more than $1,000 because, and I looked them up on the internet, and they for a quantity of 40 at a cost of 25 each, it amounts to $1,000. A water fountain, 1, a brown of 350. The bench railing, 2, since there are 2 benches, about $1,000. The dugout repairs, I would estimate around $500 for both. The dugout safety rails, they would need 4 at about $200. And then the soccer field goals, I estimate 4, and looking through the internet for suitable goals, 4 of them would cost around $600. And the night security lamps, 2 of them, and then this is just a rough estimate, around $1,200. Now on the lamps, I'd have to admit that I don't think they would affect the viewing of when you work up at McDonald's Oratory, because as far as I can see, they're the same lamps that are found throughout the city that are basically low intensity, but provide ample lighting for security's sake. And for anyone who may be thinking, well, where's the money coming from? I would say that the dollars could come out of line item 01-642-0730, which is basically a maintenance for all parks. Apparently there is a $20,000 allocation in that line item in the budget for this year. And that's it.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Ramon, have you had a chance to talk with the Parks Board about this at all?
I'm sorry, Rick, I can hear you, but not very clearly.
Yeah, I'll get my mumble machine off. Have you had a chance to talk to the Parks Board at all?
No, I have not.
Okay.
Yeah, on those security lamps, Ramon,
Yes.
when you're playing baseball, you gotta have ample lighting. It's not really the same as around what we have around the city. You know, you walk around, but when you're playing baseball, you gotta have ample light, and yet that it doesn't reflect off the field. So you might want to check into that.
The slide, the photograph I submitted, it would have been nice to have seen the photograph on the screen, but there is no really reflection outside of the ball field. and it basically reflects and lights up the front part of the field. But the light is not intense. It's a low intensity, and I don't think it would affect, again, viewing from up at McDonald Observatory. But my request is, if take a look at that, and if you can have two of the same light poles with the same light bulb floodlight on two opposite sides of the field, that would help tremendously for the safety sake of residents and
So
that use the ballpark.
they'd be identical to what's existing there then.
I'm sorry, can't hear you.
I said they would be identical to what the existing ones are. The new lights would be identical to what's there already.
Yes, that's my recommendation.
Okay.
And Ramon, the two security lights that are there now, they work okay?
There's only one security light, and the light itself it's meterized and junction box, and down below the junction box, there's two outlets. And I'm assuming that the city is probably taking care of the bill. But there's only one light out there.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
I-
Yes, sir.
My comment is, as I expressed last time, I think it was the right thing to do for the park, so I'm supportive, but I do have concerns about lights and what the long-term plan would be. So I would hope that before lights get installed, there'd be a further discussion on that, but, out of $6,000, my view is it will help that part of the community who could use that facility.
And I support that effort. It's a beautiful little field, and I think it needs to have more use there, and especially for the community that's around it. So I'm highly supportive, but again, my concern is with the lights and with McDonald's observatory. That's the only concern. Other than that, I mean, I think it's a great idea, Ramon. Yeah. So to say, Eric?
So I presume, Eric, you're going to be the one to manage implementation, and you'll sort through any light final decisions before we make them.
Yeah, the light piece, the only, I think the biggest question I have is, does it meet our specific ordinance? So anything that we go
It's
in
got to meet that.
would have to meet our ordinance.
Right.
Yep.
And as long as we do that, that's fine. We do have the 20,000 in maintenance dollars that we would allocate six of those 20 for these improvements. And, we might have to come back in a few months and look at it and say, hey, we spent X amount of dollars on this, and, maybe something went a little over and something went a little under. But,
Yep.
And they already have public restroom there for the park.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the idea around the soccer goals too is actually quite solid. We've got a lot more kids in the community playing soccer, and to have some goals over there for them to use would be nice too. And we actually have quite a bit of adult soccer as well, and they end up going over to the gopher infested. And I bet we'll see people migrating over here because it is really the nicest grass field in town.
Yeah, broken ankle field.
I think also important is any improvements now or in the future to the Lujan baseball field, and including the soccer portion, would be beneficial, especially in the strange times that we're in right now, where kids need to get out and they need to stay active. They need that leisure time, and I think the soccer field as well, improvements to the baseball field, will certainly help in that regard.
Okay. Any more? Go ahead and take a vote on it. All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. I'm missing somebody?
You got it, all five.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you, everyone.
Mhm.
Let's go to item number 9, Ms. Curry.
Okay, I'm going to make the motion that we discuss, consider, and take appropriate action amending the City of Alpine ordinance, removing chapter 10 animals 10-41B and adding it to section 10-59 animals and vehicles. And it's just striking it from, it's already, it's in two places and it's just removing it from one place. So it's more easy to understand is all that it's doing in the ordinance.
Okay, so that's your motion.
I'm sorry.
Motion made and seconded. Okay, now we can talk more about it.
I'm sorry. I do that every single time. It's just striking it from the one, the 41B and adding it to the 1059 because it's already talking about animals and vehicles. So it's just taking it from one place and putting it somewhere else where it's easier. That's all.
Okay. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Motion passes. Okay, let's go to item number 10, Councilman Stevens.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Mayor. So I move that we consider appropriate action to determine whether or not the continued engagement of Rod Ponton as the city attorney for the city of Alpine. The concern, so that's the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's made and second.
Yeah, and so the reason I put this on the table, I mean, Rod's done some great work for the city, but frankly, my concern is, and part of it is centered around the lack of timeliness of working what I think many of us consider to be important issues relative to allegations made about lack of probable cause, lack of filing reports, actions that have been taken relative to the police department. My concern is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rod, you are the city attorney in addition to Alpine, but for Pecos, Presidio, Balmorhea, you're also retained by Brewster County to provide legal counsel to them, and you also have a private practice on the side.
Oh, correct.
And so my worry is, you know, frankly, is there are some very serious allegations that have been made that go back as far as April, as we learned from what came out of Brewster County. And we are still here today in now November, and we don't have any better resolution on those allegations or statements. And frankly, my concern is it doesn't appear that you have the time to be able to meet the obligations that we need for the city of Alpine. So that's why I raised the issue.
That's your motion.
No, I already made the
You already
motion.
made it, yeah.
The motion was made and Maria seconded. That was
Okay.
discussion. So, so we're in the discussion phase, and what's not clear to me is how you feel you're able to allocate time, because the message from my standpoint is you're not meeting the needs of the city of Alpine.
Well, the message from my standpoint is it seems you have a personal issue with me. This is the second time you brought up an issue about me as the city attorney.
It's nothing personal. It's getting business done.
No, and I explained at an earlier agenda item that the request by the council for me to do an in-depth study of the Alpine Police Department required me obtaining substantial data from the Brewster County Attorney's Office. I did obtain that substantial data, and then late last week, I was requested by the county attorney to return that data. Because the data that had been formulated for me pursuant to my request so that I could provide the data to this council was done in such a fashion that I wasn't going to be able to use it in the format that was presented to me. We've already discussed this earlier today, that the report that you requested will be complete with backup data at the next city council meeting. So at the time you all made that request to me, I promptly made the request to the county attorney's office. And It took a while for him to gather up that information. I got it. Then late last week, he asked for it back. So, the allegation that I don't have time to attend to the city on that specific item is because of those reasons, not because I don't have time in general to devote to the city of Alpine's matters. And I gave you all an update on the matters I'm working on earlier at this council meeting.
So when did you first bring up the issues of the 39 cases of lack of probable cause? When did you bring that to city council?
I don't have the date from me.
Okay, it was clearly in before the month of October. It was well before August 7th when I asked you for the detail because you kept bringing it up and up and up. I'm happy to go back and do the research, but I suspect it was well before September. And so are not allegations of that of major concern when we're going through all of the issues and expectations? And I would have expected you would have taken action before then to anticipate this as, wow, this is a big issue because you yourself identified it as a significant risk to the city, including in letters that you wrote to the Attorney General on that subject that were sent out in September.
And don't you expect that to have a reply to such serious matters that you want it to be complete and thoughtful and well done and not done in a hurry?
There's no question, but on the 7th of October, I asked you for that. And I recall specifically, I said, can you have it the next day? You said, no, I can't. I'll have it for the next city council meeting. At the next city council meeting on October 20th, you still didn't have the information. So it just, hey, Rod, I think you're gifted in many areas as city attorney, particularly as a attorney, as you've been working Union Pacific. You got lots of great ideas. I just frankly think you're not devoting the time necessary for the city of Alpine. I can make lots of reasons and lots of excuses as well for why things don't get done. But in my view, when there's an allegation that there are 39 cases of lack of probable cause, this is an expectation relative to what's going on across the country and this city. I find it unacceptable to continue to have to wait, because now the next time we'll see this, the next time would be not until our next meeting in November. And as you recall, I sent an email to you last week. We had an email exchange, specifically said, hey, I'd like to make sure I know whether I can get this information on the 27th so I can put together an agenda item on the 28th of October to be able to meet the deadline, which is Wednesday, to get this information submitted. You'd said, hey, I'm working on it. I'll have it. Your email said, I'll have it for you at the meeting. I don't think I can have the information available in time to be included in the meeting. As it turns out, subsequently, you weren't even allowed to have the information.
And at the time you and I had that email discussion, I did not know I was not allowed to have that information. And I had forwarded that information to
You're the city attorney.
the city manager in the expectation that I would be able to take that information and use it as a basis for a detailed report tonight.
Yep.
In fact, that information had to be returned last week, as I've explained.
I get
So
it. You're our legal expert.
So the expectation that I had is that based on the information I've been given, I would be able to make that report.
You're our legal expert. If you didn't know the law, I can't fix that. End of my comments.
Is there any more discussion?
Well, I do, I have a question. I mean, I know that we brought this item up on October the 7th. We had given Rod a vote of confidence and it was agreed to vote, so, I mean.
Go back on the same item. And what I'm seeing here is when Rod was hired, it was known that he was an attorney for a couple of other cities. And he was hired under that basis. So, like you said, it's been brought up once before. So I think it's time to just get it resolved once and for all. So is there any other discussion?
You have a comment from
Uh,
Oscar?
Yes, Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor,
Hello?
yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a comment.
Yes, sir.
As Rod is our city attorney, I think in good faith, he's done well. Apparently he's a popular attorney because many people have hired him for other issues in other cities and so forth. I mean, but that's his thing. That doesn't have much to do with us. The only thing I can say is some of his reporting was a little cursory, but overall, it's our job to get as much information from him and question things that are a legal matter for the benefit of our citizens. But overall, I think he's done good as a city attorney.
And, you know, I'm looking at also, I've already talked to municipal, a candidate for municipal judge, and I'm also looking at getting a prosecutor for that court. And that would relieve him of those duties, so he can concentrate more on the city issues.
I want to point out to the council that my predecessor as city attorney worked for a law firm that represented 30 different cities.
Yeah, that's correct.
And the fact that they represent multiple cities is not an issue, other than the fact that you're hiring firms that have recognized municipal law experience
Right.
and expertise.
The corporations.
And I would point out also, though, there is responsiveness.
Yes, sir.
Officer Kogels, Ward 5. I'm in this particular item number 10, concerning your attorney, Rod Ponton. I gave you the phrase for this. I call it a case of denial and deflection in reference to City Attorney Rod Ponton. I have looked, I'm going to share several talking points here. He's exhibited a pattern of no accountability, no transparency, and there's also the question of conflict of interest, question of ethics, and I guess, I don't know if insubordination applies to this, this is not an employee. He's basically done things behind closed doors on his own within the county, and without city approval. There's a pattern of this. We're seeing it at the top of the Attorney General's office. We have the opportunity here today to move forward. Today, y'all have approved 25 more game rooms. There's plenty of bars in town. I've shared with y'all about the resignation that I had called forth for the city back in 1990 for chief of police. And these are two key areas. And the chief of police would agree with us today, the council, and there's a lot of us with the council would agree that the areas of law enforcement are very crucial, and the areas of the city attorney's office / municipal court. So this pattern and result of everything that is going on with the city of Alpine, as y'all know, as y'all have evidenced, there's a backlog of cases, there's selective prosecution and no prosecution. A lot of things that have been done and no approval of the city council from Mr. Ponton's office. He has suggested a while back, and I know I've visited and I've read this a while back, that where he suggested firing a couple of officers from the police department. He made a suggestion that didn't even go before the council. What happens here also, and as a pattern of and no results, is that there's no trust and low morale in all departments. What happens when the penal code enforcement officers, police department officers, dog catchers, everything's going to start calling up? And what happens here is we're going to have trust is lost. There's no morale, no low morale in all departments. Who can we rely on? Because there's a lack of communication. And that's what happened back in 90 with the chief of police. And I personally came and I said, you got to let him go. And so this lack of communication, well, not this or not that. And also, number 7, one of the other areas there in that particular item is the city has got to consider something all the time. There's a liability issue with the city of Alpine on the cases of probable cause or his question, no, there's no probable cause, this, that, kind of going back and forth. I don't know, like I said, I know he's shared earlier about, well, he's got several cities under his belt that he is city attorney with, cities and counties. But this life in Alpine is very crucial also. You're gonna open the door for lawsuits if y'all don't make a decision. I'm asking the council today, the mayor, and all of y'all today, for the citizens of Alpine, y'all have already approved more game rooms, there's more bars, but if these two key areas of enforcement and your city attorney's office are not principled, we're not gonna get nowhere. We're gonna have more problems piling up. So in closing today, I'm gonna say that a little quote that Mr. Ponton shared, and I still have it. It says, "You've been paid enough." Quoted by our attorney Rod Ponton in a business agreement, leaving a consultant friend of mine with a bill of, an agreement of over 5,000 not paid in a proposal in the city that we worked on in the city of Pecos. Over 5,000, he just walked away. So tonight, I asked the city of Alpine and council, mayor, to ask Rod Ponton, your city attorney, to submit his resignation or to terminate his contract today, preventing other conflicts and chaos within the city of Alpine and your constituents. Remember that he is being held, there's no accountability in his part right now. Now it reflects on you. It reflects on the council, reflects on the mayor, the decisions that you make for the city of Alpine today. You get things in better working order, accountability. And, you know, like I said in closing today, you know, this is very important. You know, I don't know if y'all are familiar with the city of Tejoca. I believe Mr. Ponton is just resigned the city of Tejoca, and he can elaborate on that. And he's also being sued, and the city of Tejoca is being sued. Everything that is piling up with the city of Alpine, it does encompass everything around us. So today, I ask the city to make the right decision for the people of Alpine, for the security of Alpine, and for the law enforcement of Alpine. If not, things are gonna have a trajectory that are not gonna be good. It's not gonna be good for the community. So I'm asking you, the council. And I was told by, as I visited with some of you, some said, no, well, I didn't know he was working out there, or this thing shouldn't be brought up in, out of executive session, some of the other. Everything has to be transparent for the city of Alpine. And I ask you today to make the right decision, whether for his resignation or to terminate his contract. Thank you for your time.
Why don't you tell the council that you worked for Xochitl Peña Rodriguez as a political operative earlier this year? I was working to help my friend Roland Gutierrez, who was running for state senate. Roland Gutierrez beat Xochitl Peña Rodriguez, the Democratic primary for state senate. So you worked for her, and so it's a political deal. You worked for the losing candidate. I'm sorry, but that's politics.
Sir, this has nothing to do with this item. Ms. Rodriguez won 60% of the voting, 61% of the vote in Brewster County.
She lost the race statewide, and Mr.
Don't politicize.
Gutierrez is running that.
Point of order, this is not a political discussion.
Okay, any more discussion?
Thank you.
So I do have, Chief,
Yes, sir.
no, I have a question for Chief, please. Thanks, Oscar.
Thank you.
So, Chief, what can you tell us about the 39 cases relative to probable cause and the 19 cases where there's been no reports that we council have heard, can't get any insight about?
Yes, sir. Sorry.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, City Council, I have conducted an internal audit of my department. One of the questions that I had was, you know, Mr. Houston was welcome to come to my office anytime and speak about the cases we were submitting to the county attorney's office. Mr. Houston has not done that. And I'm not understanding the correlation with Mr. Potton looking into county cases. That is not his court. That's Steve Houston's court. But as it turns out, I have looked into the allegations with CETUS conducting an audit of my department. And I have done some cases that have needed to be looked at. Rod says he has 23 cases in question. 5 has been submitted to the prosecutor between the dates of March 2020 to November 2020. One was submitted by accident. It was a felony case. It should have went to the district attorneys. 2, there was non-prosecutions filed. 1 is pending a lab submittal. 4 were sent to the county attorney's office November the 2nd. My findings, and this goes back to 2017, no deficiencies. 2018, one of the cases he has marked was turned into the county office and signed for it, which is an employee of Steve Houston's. Another case was turned in to the county attorney's office. Ms. Rodriguez signed for it, but it's stating in his notes that they were never turned in. 1 case, non-prosecution. In 2019, 4 cases are ready to be submitted. 2 for non-prosecution, 1 pending lab support results. 1 case listed as a felony, so it went to the district attorney. 2020, 11 cases. 1, there's a warrant entered in it, NCIC, TCIC. 2 were transferred to the district attorney's office. 8 pending cases. All but 1 is ready to go to the county attorney. And you have to realize there's approximately 4 cases that just came in that we are still putting together to take over there. It's like 2 to 3 weeks old. That's the county cases. I don't understand why our city attorney is looking into our county cases.
So, to the point, Chief, are you find that the allegation that's been made is there are 39 cases, and I think I heard you say over a 3-year period, that there's an allegation of lack of probable cause. And are you finding any cases being submitted for lack of probable cause?
In looking at Mr. Houston's remarks, he's claiming of no probable cause. If you could bear with me a minute.
But has he ever fed back to
He has
you?
never come to me.
He's never stated to you, but yet he'll go to Rod Ponton.
Yes,
And Rod, you're an employee of Steve Houston's, I understand as well.
no,
You're a consultant to him because you're hired by the county.
I'm hired by the county to represent the county in a lawsuit where the county was sued over real estate.
Okay?
Hired by the county commissioner's court to represent the county in the lawsuit that the county is not covered under the coverage of tax.
Okay, thank you.
So it's not a representing them in a law enforcement manner, and I'm not working for Steve Houston.
But nonetheless, you received information from Steve Houston about 39 cases that lack probable cause,
Yes,
but thus far has not been able to provide any information relative to that, nor have you spoken to the chief, nor have you implored Steve Houston to talk to the chief about it.
did you understand what I told you earlier about the information I received from Steve Houston?
I completely understand that.
It has to be reformatted so it can be presented to the council.
No, that's not what I stated. You gotta listen. I asked whether or not you have implored Steve Houston to come talk to the chief of police.
That's not my business. Steve Houston should do whatever he wants.
Very good, but you can come to the council and make an allegation of 39 cases without probable cause based upon information you're told by Steve Houston. That's what you've said.
I report what I'm told by the elected county attorney in Wichita County.
Continue, chief.
May I, sir? I do have a letter here where Mr. Cotton is requesting the Siege's report from Steve Houston,
Ah,
okay?
okay,
And it is dated October the 8th.
okay.
And I'm sorry, but the issue that I have with this is Mr. Cotton was a district attorney, am I not correct? 4 years. Mr. Cotton should know that the Siege's information is not public record. But yet he passed it on to our city manager and our city secretary.
Yep.
It is not public information and they are not law enforcement, nor are they prosecutors. Did you not pass it on to them? I did. So that is a violation of the law.
Yep. Okay, thanks, chief.
Anything else, sir?
Anything else you want to
I
share?
have,
Go ahead.
I don't know where Mr. Cotton's coming up with the total of the cases that he is, but I do have here our city cases.
Okay.
Because I did an audit on them also,
Okay,
okay? And one of the things that really stuck out to me is a case regarding the public intoxication. And Mr. Cotton puts on here, no danger, insufficient evidence for PI. I have the redacted case report right here. If anyone would like to take a look at it, the names have been taken off. This case never even made it in front of the judge. This case, the evidence was never seen, and this is what we're having to deal with in our city courts. If anyone would like to take a look at it. And it clearly states he was a danger to himself. The officer never got to testify to it. The evidence was never seen. Just wanted to mention that. I would like to finish up that I have a letter here from Siege's. As of today, dated October 21st, Brewster County is at 90% compliance. That is including the sheriff's office, the police department, Sul Ross State University, DPS, anyone that puts prisoners into this jail. Is that not correct? 90% compliance with 2,140 cases disposed out of 2,369 cases. The requirement is 90% by July the 1st, 2021. So reaching 90% early in the cycle is impressive, which is where we're at. The 5-year audit from Siege's, 2014, 100%. 2015, 99%. 2016, 98%. 2017, 91%. 2018, 82%. Now, I've been transparent. Credibility, honesty, integrity, loyalty to the city, honesty. That's what I'm all about. It's what I stand for. Here's TCO audit. No sufficient or no deficiencies.
and what does TCOLO stand for?
Texas Commission on Law Enforcement.
Thank you.
I've been transparent with council. I would be more than willing to work with council, the prosecutors in the city, that they don't reach out to me. Any more questions?
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Is there any more discussions?
My fundamental issue is that there seems to be a lot of discussion that goes on between the city attorney and county leaders, including Steve Houston, the sheriff, but not a hell of a lot that goes on with the city of Elkhorn. If he's got time to go do that, it's not clear to me why we're not getting the information we're looking for.
Okay, is there any more discussion?
The only other question I would ask is, and make comment that there are council members who I believe get attorney support from Mr. Pond. And they need to weigh whether or not they are eligible to vote and take any action on this because of conflict of interest. And if there is conflict, they need to abstain.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and take a vote on it. And whether to take appropriate action, whether to continue to engage Rod Ponton as a city attorney or not. Those that are in favor of not wanting to continue to engage Rod Ponton, please raise your right hand. Okay, two. Those that wish to continue with Rod Ponton as a city attorney of the city of Alpine, raise your right hand. Betty, are you voting or not?
My hand's there.
Okay, thank you. So 3-2, so,
And we have two council members I know get services from Rod Ponton. That's their conscience.
so Rod Ponton, you continue to serve as city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on now to city council comments and answers. We'll start with, Ms. Curry.
I don't really have any comments this evening. Thank you.
Okay, and let's go with Mr. Olivas.
Yes, Honorable Mayor and fellow councilman, as you all may know, this is basically my last official meeting with this go around with the of the my extended period of service due to the pandemic and of course the delay of the elections. And I'd like to say, first of all, it's been a pleasure and honor and privilege to be able to serve the residents of Ward 2. I'd like to also say that it's been a privilege to work with all of you on council, sharing ideas and trying to come up with the best possible actions for the benefit of our citizens of Alpine. And I'd like to say thank you, Mr. Ramos, for the leadership and guidance you have provided. And above all, kudos to all of the employees of the city of Alpine. And from the CEO, Eric, and his staff, his leadership staff, but all the employees who, with loyalty, have continued to provide the best possible services to the Alpine residents. Thank you for that. And hopefully, if the future dictates that I can continue serving, I will certainly give it strong consideration. Thank you.
Olivas, I'd like to thank you for your service to the city. And I know that you do fight hard, you have fought hard for your ward, and that is a great reflection on your character. Okay. And I'm sure that the residents of your ward are proud of you having represented them. And it's been my pleasure to work alongside with you. You come with a lot of ideas. You do question a lot of things, which is good. And for that, I applaud you, sir. So again, I want to thank you for your service at the city council. Thank you very much. Okay, let's go with this. Fitzgerald.
Yes. You're gonna be, I wanna tell him he's gonna be missed, and I'm sorry you're leaving us. But my heart is with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fitzgerald. Ms. Coelho.
Ramon, I want to thank you for being part of the city council, and I hope you do just, if it's possible, to have you stay on. I also want to thank everybody for attending our city council meeting.
Okay. Councilman Stevens.
Hey, Ramon, yeah, thanks for serving. Thanks for the dialogue and the discussion. And I hope that you'll be able to come to the next meeting with the mask. I'll buy one for if you want, so we can at least shake your hand. Then we can all wash our hands after we do all that. Yeah, so thanks for taking the time to be on council supporting, and Lucy, good luck tonight. We'll, hopefully it'll come out in the right direction. That's all I have.
It's good to see y'all face to face. It's been a long time for me because I had been out and so only saw you on the Zoom. But I'm glad everybody's alive and well, staying healthy, and continue to do what we're all doing here. You know, our main purpose here is to serve the public and to do it in the correct manner. And so for that, I want to wish you all a good evening, and I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Okay, second.
I'll second that.
Motion second, not debatable. The meeting is adjourned. Okay, get my gavel.